My name's Greg Baker. I'm the head of Saints Foundation at Southampton Football Club, which is a club that plays, hopefully most of you will know, in the English Premier League. And I'll also introduce my colleague, so the Saints Foundation Marketing and Communications Manager, Nicole, who I will pass over to in 5-10 minutes to really talk through how we developed our marketing side of our strategy. But just in terms of the presentation, hopefully you're in the right place. This is what we're trying to achieve. So effectively, the next half an hour, 45 minutes is effectively to try to provide an overview of the development of our updated brand, strategy and purpose that we undertook a couple of years ago between 2018 and 2019. And effectively also a little bit about how we flexed it to reflect our work during the COVID-19 pandemic, which obviously for all of us is a real challenge. So I guess the first question is why did we do this piece of work? And here's some thoughts really. So effectively, Saints Foundation has been running for a number of years. We celebrate our 20-year anniversary last year of work across various guises, starting out as in 2001 as Saints in the Community and developing into Saints Foundation in 2010. And effectively across those years of work, I'm really proud of what we've achieved, including work that was delivered long before my time. But what we probably never really had is a coherent strategy that pulled everything that we were doing together. We were doing some really good work and some really good delivery that was making fundamental change in communities, but actually there was probably no real defined purpose or reason why we existed. So we were doing loads of great stuff, but actually if someone said to me, where's your strategy, where's your purpose, how are you drawing all this great work together, then actually we were probably lacking a little bit in that area. Probably one of the main challenges that we had was if we asked our 50 or so staff back in 2017, 2018, what we as an entity did. They would talk eloquently about the projects that they delivered and the great work that they were doing in their own little bit of Saints Foundation, but actually probably would struggle to give an overview about what the foundation was trying to achieve across the board. And certainly the feeling is that probably there were 50 different answers. So if you'd asked me, if you'd asked Nicole, if you'd asked some of our project staff, some of our admin staff, some of our fundraising staff, you get a slightly different answer. So one of the reasons why we wanted to draw that together was to make sure that actually, you know, if you bump into me or you bump into someone that runs our disability program, actually, you know, we're all going to say the same about why Saints Foundation exists and what we do. And I think it's probably fair to say that if you spoke to our partners, so local schools, local mental health providers, people that work with homeless people that we work with, for example, and also members of the local community, they'd all have a slightly different view about what Saints Foundation stands for, what it did as well. Which obviously, again, you know, not a fundamental issue. We still did some great work, but actually we felt that there was a really important piece of work that we wanted to do to draw something together. Our work was delivered across 5 pillars, probably very similar to a lot of the work that you guys do around health and well-being, social inclusion, etc., sport development. But it was all a little bit disorganized, messy, and just grown organically rather than ever being strategic. We had no real clear thematic or geographical boundaries of what we did. So, you know, effectively, whether that was in the city of Southampton or 30 miles down the road, in the past, we did have a habit of just going and doing stuff and ultimately not really having a rhyme or reason of what we did. And I think also really importantly, it might sound really strange to say, actually, we didn't know when to say no. We didn't know what we said no to. You know, probably the same as all of you guys on the call, you probably get, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 messages a week, maybe even a day, where a partner comes to you and says, I've got this great idea, can we develop this piece of work together? And actually, we had no real reason to say no in the past. We didn't have a clear strategy that said, we only work with these people, we only work around these themes, we only work in this area. So actually, even if we did say no, it was sometimes quite a hard conversation to have to be able to say no. So that meant that we sometimes didn't use our resources effectively. We were flying off all over the place. We had a little bit of an international strategy, a little bit of an education strategy that was working across various areas. You know, within a sort of a 50-mile radius of us. We were doing some stuff in the city, and it all kind of happened, and it was all good to an extent. But ultimately, again, we had no coherent way of putting that together. So this wasn't about stopping what we were already doing, although obviously there was an opportunity to do so if we wanted to. but it was about clearly defining a position for our future development. We also knew, and I think this is one absolute tip that we would give if you're going through this process, is that staff involvement is crucial, and that we needed to make sure that both the staff, but also really for partners and the community as well, that any changes were done with rather than done to. And Nicole will talk a little bit of what we did around the engagement of our staff a little bit later on. Also, it's probably just worth saying that our brand was pretty disparate. So as well as our work being disparate, our brand was a little bit all over the place. So we had a master logo, which you see on the left-hand side of Saints Foundation, with our strapline of inspires, supports and delivers, and then a myriad of logos from various different projects, Saints Connect, Saints Kick, Saints for Sport, all projects that we still continue to run. But probably fair to say that they didn't all look like they come from the same brand. They looked like they came from different organisations, stood for different things. And ultimately, again, we just wanted to make sure that actually everything that we did was identifiable, was coming from the same place. Also, we get a huge amount of funding and support from the Premier League, and we did have some programs also that were funded branded as Premier League programs. Hence the logo at the bottom, Premier League for Sport. So we did actually operate some of our work on that brand, which wasn't Saints at all. So actually that felt like a little bit of a problem as well. So again, just going into why before I pass over to Nicole, there was a huge amount of work delivered for this piece. It's not an easy thing to do. And if you're contemplating doing a similar piece of work at the moment, don't underestimate just how big, but also how useful I think the process is. Our marketing team, hence Nicole being on the call, was absolutely integral to pulling this together. But what we also want to make sure is that, this isn't coming across as being a marketing only led project. This was right across our teams, our project delivery teams, our project managers, our trustees, our club, et cetera, was really bought into this process to make sure that we really set ourselves up really well for the future. Actually, where Nicole's main work and her team's main work kicked in was once we really decided what we wanted to be. Nicole's team was to really come up with a really fantastic and coherent communication strategy, a marketing strategy. How do we represent it visually? How do we talk about it? But not defining what we do. That was for others to define what we do, what we stood for, et cetera, et cetera. And Nicole's role within the marketing team was to make sure that that was then pulled together to be able to tell our story really coherently, really well. So to help this process, we spent a few weeks defining the principles of what we wanted our organisation to be, so that was working with staff, the local community and our partners. And we decided off the back of that process, with some real hard work that went into it and some real data analytics via the City Council, via some of our own stats, some talking to key individuals within the city, within the club, etc. We decided that our main focus would be that we would be supporting people within the city of Southampton. So that was scaling back our delivery outside of the city of Southampton. So anything that we did elsewhere in the county or internationally, we were really starting to look about the viability of that. Why were we doing it? Trying to think really carefully about how we pulled back from that. We wanted our focus to be supporting people of all ages, other organisations. And some of you, I'm assuming, that are on the Zoom chat, and just by the way, I can't see you, so I don't know who I'm talking to. So if it feels like I'm being rude, I'm not acknowledging anyone, then please accept my apologies. But some of you will be working with only young people, which is fantastic for you. However, we decided that we really wanted to be a holistic support across all ages in the city. So therefore, by association, that is effectively from 2 years old to 100 plus. Last year, our oldest participant was actually 103. We wanted our work to be based on need, as I said before, demonstrated by data, with our work targeting those people that needed our support the most. So I always say, making the assumption that me as a middle income guy is okay. Saints Foundation does not support me. It supports those people that maybe need some support with their education. It supports the people that need some help with their mental health, with raising aspirations, with some issues they've got going on at home, etc., etc. So we wanted to be really clear about who we supported, and therefore by association who we didn't support. We wanted to provide holistic support, not be an expert in one area. That isn't to say that our staff are not experts. They have a huge amount of wealth of experience and knowledge. However, what we don't want to be is an organisation that only is known for mental health support, or only is known for for I don't know, employability support. We wanted to make sure that we provided holistic support to people, but also that we partnered with expert organisations within our community to be able to provide the right service to those people that we work with, either as part of our projects or as a signposting to get further support in the future. I think really importantly in the context of EFDN, and I think all of you guys are doing this, we wanted to make sure that football was used as a tool for social good, not delivering football for football's sake. Yeah, football is a fantastic game. We've all grown up playing it. I love it, etc. But actually, Saints Foundation does not exist to play football. It exists to use football to effectively change for social good, to change people's lives, to be able to use it as the hook to bring people into services, etc., etc. We made it clear that we wanted to scale back our international and national footprint. We wanted to theme our work across 3 pillars to help streamline messaging, which Nicole's going to talk about, our line management processes, our safeguarding processes, etc., to make sure that we were as efficient as we could be. And really importantly, we wanted to make sure that all of our work that we did was measurable, with a commitment given to report back on that progress made to both our local community, our stakeholders, and our staff and our club as well. This did mean stopping some projects outside of the city and also reorganising our team, which unfortunately, as per a lot of these processes, did lead to a few redundancies, which was awful. And that's not a process that anyone enjoys. However, at the same time, it was really clear that in order to move ourselves forward in the way that we wanted to be, then actually that some of that was necessary to scale back our activities. For example, 50 miles away, some of our international stuff, etc., etc. So on the back of that, knowing what we wanted to deliver, we effectively then gave Nicole, who is now going to talk, a marketing brief which would help define who we were. That marketing brief, just before I pass over to Nicole, was effectively, to slightly paraphrase, was to develop and agree a clear vision, mission and brand identity, which clearly defines the existence of the charity, provides a clear message to our staff and public about who we are and what we do, and also by association, what we don't do, which I think is really important. So I'm going to pass over to Nicole now. So Nicole.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, everyone. So part of this process really fell in a really nice time with what the football club were working on as well. So to take a step back, around the time that Greg and the team were working through the refocus that he's just spoken through, the club were also looking at their own branding. So all of the sub-brands that sit within the football club and how they relate to each other. So they wanted to create more of a branded house. So it fell at really good timing at the same time that we were working on this refocus. It was another fantastic opportunity to look at our branding and how it sits in relation to the football club and the other football club brands too. So we'd already started some of this work based on what we've just spoken about. So it just felt like it went really well hand in hand with what we wanted to roll out. So the club undertook a brand architecture project and we were a core part of that team. So as you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, none of the football club sub-brands felt like they had a really good fit within the club branding, same as us. So although you might be able to see a loose relationship there, you know, it didn't really feel like a branded house at the time. So part of this project kind of meant that we could work on where we as Saints Foundation should sit against Southampton Football Club's main club brand and alongside their other sub-brands as well. So you can see Saints Events and Saints Learning there, which are 2 other core parts of their business. So this project, being part of this project really ensured that our staff voices could be heard. So it was really good to be a core part of that team at the time that we knew we wanted to go out with a refocused strategy. So there's many elements to this and it went on for a long time, probably around potentially over a year from when the project initially kicked off. But it was really great to be so involved and our staff be so involved too. So it included things like creative workshops at the stadium with different promotional branding on the boards, where our staff could feedback and say, yes, this reflects what I do out in the community, or no, I don't feel like it does. And, you know, to Greg's point earlier, it really was important that our staff were involved in every part of this, because they're the ones who kind of take our brand and our messaging out into the community every day. So they needed to be completely bought in at every part of this project. This kind of turned into a rollout of that brand to ensure that all of our brand guidelines fitted in within the club. And it's just meant that everything was easier going forward in terms of, you know, shared resources that we have with the football club, such as graphic design or email marketing tools. So to then kind of build on what Greg was previously discussing, I was briefed, me and my team were briefed to be able to make sure we could talk about this externally really clearly. So we worked really closely with Greg and with the various managers across Saints Foundation, including the staff, getting their feedback to come up with a very simple way of talking about ourselves externally. But what we kind of gathered as we went through this, as yes, the purpose of this was to take this message externally, but it was just as important for our internal teams too. To Greg's point earlier, you know, we found our staff kind of saying in various different ways about what Saints Foundation meant to them, and everyone would kind of talk about us in a slightly different way. So we really just wanted people to clearly understand our work and the outcomes that we were here to achieve. And this was quite difficult previously, where we worked across the 5 different key themes. So really, once we had this brief, we had some considerations that we had to think about. So, you know, one of them being, how do we make it clear that we are an independent charity, but, you know, alongside the important link that we have to Southampton Football Club? You know, do we decide to take a age or life stage led kind of approach, or do we go back down the themed approach that we had before with the way we talk about our charitable projects? And one which did become quite difficult is, how do we talk about activity that doesn't necessarily fit into this core purpose? For example, our football and sports development, so our coaching part of our business, where, you know, we run our soccer school programs and profits are reinvested back into the charitable projects in the community. There was plenty of considerations, but taking all of that on board, we worked closely with a branding agency to help us get to this final stage that you see on the right, with how we wish to talk about ourselves externally and the development of that message. So because of the timing of the football club brand architecture project, it felt a perfect fit to work with the same branding agency that the club did for that project, but on this directly, which was brilliant, because they'd really got to know our charity. They really understood what we were here to achieve, and, you know, various different projects, and they'd met so many of our staff, and it felt like they'd already invested a lot of time in that. So it was a perfect fit to work with them on this as well. We decided that we would like to go down the theme-led approach rather than age, because we thought it'd be clearer based on the outcomes we hope to achieve with our participants. And kind of there was many sessions in a room in London with this agency that Greg and some of the team and I sat in, and it was really kind of creative and in depth, where we'd have all sorts of words on the walls that you know, we felt reflected our work and how we might be able to group our work into 3 pillars. And, you know, you could figure out if you felt drawn to certain words around certain outcomes and projects that we work on. And it really helped us kind of get to this final stage of having this message that you see on the right. Once we kind of, sure, no problem, thanks. Once we got sort of to a point that we, as a management team, felt quite comfortable with that message, we decided to get our wider staff group involved. So this entailed workshops with that group. So, you know, we thought, okay, this is sort of 90% there, and we would like to take it forward to our staff to ensure that they can input, because at the end of the day, you know, they need to be completely bought in. And as I said before, they're the people that take this message out into the community. So we had more than just 3 options at that point for our 3 pillars, but we took those to our staff. We gathered them in a room. We had the different words around the room, and allowed people to anonymously feed back into, you know, what it meant for their area and how we spoke about it. And yeah, all sorts really. We invited open feedback, which was really key to ensure we got to that kind of right outcome in the end. Finally, we did get there, and we landed on the 3 areas that you can see on the left, so involvement, health and empowerment. So moving on to the next slide. So another element to this was, how do we then take this refocused message out to, our supporters, club fans, and just out there externally and into the media? So we had another brief come to us, which was, we want something which can be shared publicly, which is around 2 minutes long, that explains what we do, sort of our elevator pitch in the form of something creative. So we decided to create an animation. So it was a simple piece of content to explain our purpose in around 2.5 minutes. So I believe there should be a link in the session description so you can watch that later on. So the idea of this was for staff use and wider understanding of what we're here to achieve and our kind of purpose. It was designed to be memorable and repeatable, so that our staff, our partners could, say what Saints Foundation do in a couple of lines and kind of remember that easily. We wanted something that would be able to be adapted in future. So it wasn't just a one-off investment. We knew we wanted to reuse some of this animated branding through our other communications in future kind of campaigns. And really what was important for us is the cityscape that you can see at the top of the slide. So we wanted to really reflect our area of focus and make it really recognisable as Southampton, with the stadium being key and at the heart of what we do, so that our connection with the football club was really, really clear. So this went down quite well, and it was a core part of our social media plans and website for quite a while. And the football club utilised this tool as well. And we decided to launch it at our charity dinner in 2019. So thank you. In terms of how we use that ongoing, so we rolled that animation video out as a video book to potential partners, donors, and the football club board, just so that we could really capture people's attention and kind of ask them to just take 2 minutes of their time to watch about our updated purpose and our refocus. I'm sure, many of you on the call know it's really hard sometimes to break through all the noise that's on social media, and we wanted kind of a physical copy of this to be able to get out to the relevant contacts as well. We also played it at some of our events, held it on the website, and we decided to use the cityscape across quite a lot of our design work as well. For example, if we were creating case study materials, we would try and use the cityscape to frame where that work was. For example, zooming into the school to then explain about one of our stories that we've achieved within one of the schools we work in. So we also used it to create, to reflect our impact as well, with stats that you saw on the previous slide. And here's a photo of how it was used at our charity dinner event. So you can see Greg there, because you can't see him on camera, but you can see him on the picture in the middle there. So yeah, we kind of used that as a backdrop at many of our events. Again, it's just about ensuring that we tie as many of our comms as possible back to our core purpose and what we're here to achieve as a charity. We've used it, we've kind of taken it out a little bit further and used it within our email marketing as well. So you can see on the left some of our emails now, when we've been talking about how we've adapted things for COVID-19, we've used some of the same creative to explain what we're doing and how we're delivering that work. Just to remind people that, our core purpose doesn't change. This is still us, we're just adapting what we do. And on the right, you can see how it sits at the forefront of our website a lot of the time as well. So moving on to how we've kind of had to adapt that for our COVID-19 response. We found it was really important to have something, again, very simple, that explains how we're achieving our purpose during COVID-19, being that, like all of us, our delivery has had to adapt. So it was decided that, it was a good time, around 18 months since the previous animation, to create an updated version, really focusing on our COVID-19 response. So again, there should be a link in the session description and you can watch that in your own time. But yeah, we thought it was really important to still use that cityscape and the same branding, and just ensure that people are really clear that we're still here to achieve the same core purpose, but have just adapted our delivery. So we took that branding through, and it actually went down really positively with the football club fans, and it's supported us in kicking off a fundraising campaign that we're running at the moment, because it feels like we're breaking through and people are starting to understand what we're here to achieve, and kind of how we're currently doing that with an adapted approach. So I'll pass back to Greg now to talk a little bit about what's next for us.
Cool, great, thanks Nicole. And it's probably just worth saying that, so Nicole talks about us working with a branding agency, which we did. However, I think Nicole probably doesn't give herself enough credit for the amount of work that she did as well. That ultimately this was very much led internally with a little bit of support. We think this is a great piece of work, and just publicly to say thank you to Nicole for leading that, which we are really proud of. But just in terms of what's next, so I think that, like everyone on the call, COVID-19 has had a fundamental, profound effect on what we deliver, what we can deliver, how we deliver, the need in our communities, etc., etc. This is not a session to go through exactly what we have done or what we continue to do within COVID-19 in terms of the adaptations of our sessions. But I guess just as a brief overview, like most of you, we've taken a lot of our work online. We can still do some one-to-ones in the UK. Despite us being on lockdown, we're still active in schools. We're doing radio shows that you can see on the photo here. What we have really been clear that everything that we do still absolutely fits our purpose. So we're not starting to do things, albeit that there might be some groundswell to try to do so, that don't fit into what we do. We exist, as we said before, to support people in and around Southampton to be more involved, healthier and empowered members of the community that helps them fulfil their potential. Everything that we do during COVID absolutely helps to fulfil that purpose. We haven't changed our purpose. Our purpose is absolutely throughout all of our work. We've just shifted how we do it slightly. So still committed to supporting our community despite our sessions looking really different. All of our updated delivery remains working with those same people under those same three pillars: involvement, health and empowerment, and will be for many years to come. That's our commitment. We've done this piece of work. We think it's a really good piece of work. What we don't want to do is to redefine our strategy again next year and then the following year. Of course, what we deliver might change, shift, develop. New opportunities might arise, new ways of working, new delivery methods, new styles might arrive. But absolutely, we want to make sure that what we do is a consistent message. We're here to support those people, those people in our community to become better versions of themselves, to fulfil their potential. So as Nicole alluded to, we've recently published a COVID-19 strategy, which is very, very, very clearly defined to the previous April 19 strategy. Just talks about us doing it in a slightly different way. One of the things that we did do was, as Nicole alluded to, an animation, which again is in your sidebar if you want to watch it. It was an overview of how we had supported the community through the COVID-19 pandemic in the initial phases, but also what we're doing over the coming year to help people recover from the community. So if you want to watch that, please do. Again, we think it's a really nice piece of comms, which has gone down really well. And then also we've published a written strategy, which, as you can see, all of that stuff that Nicole was talking about around our purpose and who we are, that we are the club's way of giving back, in this response strategy, and I would suggest in our strategy in 2025, 2026, 2027, we'll still remain saying the same, because we're really committed to that's what we do and that's the best way we use our resources. But then talking about how we've adapted our response based on the needs of COVID-19, but making some really firm commitments in here to our community that we remain committed to delivering positive change as set out in our purpose, both now and long and into the future. As I've said, that we will adapt our approach and priorities, focusing on our skills and resources on supporting those people that are affected by the pandemic the most. And that effectively our commitment, probably our main commitment to our community, is that we won't stop supporting those that need us, even if restrictions means that we can't deliver some of our activities as before. So as an example, we work with around about 400 older adults a week, normally in usual times running physical exercise sessions, which might have 30 older people in a room, for example, doing their chair-based exercises. That clearly isn't possible at this moment in time, even if legally possible, is probably not morally possible in terms of actually the risk to those vulnerable people is too high. So actually we've adapted that work to be online delivery of Saints Foundation branded exercise manuals, phone calls, a radio show, etc. That's just one example. And then again, to go into to reiterate, to demonstrate or illustrate Nicole's point, this is how we've just continued to use the Cityscape, or a watered down version of Cityscape, on our new strategy book, which has been sent to all of our staff, but also to various members of the community, members of parliament, local businesses, to really give them a really clear overview of what we stand for. So just briefly to close off, we're probably 5 minutes early, but there'll be a chance for questions if anyone wants to put them, is I just thought it was worth going through some key learnings that myself and Nicole kind of would recommend if you're going through this process, which, as I say, is a really complex process to go through, and your day job doesn't go away, that actually you've still got to deliver your projects, you've still got to deliver all of your branding whilst this work is going on. But I think it's a really important project that we're really proud of, and ultimately we know, as to Nicole's point earlier, that actually this has really affected our communication strategy, and we know that it's starting to really have some positive effect on people's understanding about what we do, and therefore by association their feelings about us, and that's a knock-on effect to them wanting to be involved, to donate, to volunteer, to fund us, etc., etc. So actually don't underestimate the power externally and internally of a really positive, coherent message which people understand. So, you know, some key learnings: this is a time-consuming process, so don't rush it. This is not a piece of work that you, as a head of foundation or head of community, or as a marketing manager on your own, can do. This is something that will take a huge amount of work across the board to make sure the messaging is right. I think this piece of work cannot be led only by people that run your projects, but it also cannot be led only by people that do your marketing. Ultimately, otherwise you're going to go too heavy on one or the other, a really kind of complex messaging about your projects that no one understands, or vice versa, sometimes a messaging that's all around marketing and has a lot of fluff but doesn't necessarily have the substance behind it in terms of actually the outcomes we're trying to achieve. So make sure you involve all of the team, or make sure that stakeholders are across it, including the local community, and that goes on throughout the process, not just once at the start, not just once at the end, but absolutely making sure that there are 3, 4, 5 touch points across the course of your strategy development, your brand development, to make sure that you're on the right track, and ultimately you're reflective of those people that you work for you, work with, and also work for in terms of the community. So make sure you're clear on who you are, why you exist, where you work, and what you do. And I keep on saying this: what you don't do. That's been really, really, really important. And actually, this piece of work has probably saved me, you know, half an hour of emails a day of going back to people that say, "Can we work with you?" And then now the clear thing that I say if we get something coming in from internationally is, "Really sorry, Saints Foundation strategy, you know, doesn't have an international element. Good luck." Whereas previously we kind of had to go through much more of a convoluted process to get to that point. So that's been really valuable. Make sure everything you do, and this is teaching you to suck eggs, so I apologise, make sure everything you do is based on need. Any of us should not be doing programs that aren't needed in our community. So only bid for programs, only do programs if they are based on the need in your community. And really important, make sure they're measurable so that you can tell your funders, your community, your staff exactly how you've got on and the changes you're making to the community. As I said before, learn to say no, allow you to concentrate on what you're good at. We've been incredibly guilty over the years of just saying yes and then getting into a bit of a muddle with stuff because it doesn't fit our purpose. And actually, we've got a lot better at saying no, which is great. And probably the main point of this is, once you've developed a brand, a purpose, and a strategy that you're happy with, stick to it. Even when times are tough, and I think we're in the ultimate tough time at the moment with COVID-19, which can blow organisations of all types and sizes off course. And we've been really clear, or tried to be really clear, that ultimately we might do things differently, but everything we do is still very, very clearly aligned to our strategy, our purpose, and our areas of focus. And again, you know, whether we're talking here in 2030 or next year, I think, you know, I'm pretty committed that we will be saying the same thing in terms of that is Saints Foundation's focus. And ultimately, you know, we, as I say, we might flex how we do things, but what we stand for, why we exist, what we do, won't change. So that was the end of the formal presentation. I think we've got 5-10 minutes. If you wanted to ask any questions, Leonardo, I don't know whether anything's come through. Obviously, we can't see the sidebar as we are at this moment in time.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Nicole, so much. As of now, there are no questions in particular on the platform. Maybe we can give a minute or two if people are drawing up their questions right now. So please, everybody, feel free to just comment your questions on the platform in the chat box, and Greg and Nicole will do their best to give you a good response.
No, silence is deafening. So that obviously either means we've done an incredibly good job, or probably moreover that we've bored people to death and they don't want to, they don't have any questions. So yeah, I mean, probably just to say, if there are any questions that come out the back of it, if you want to talk to Nicole about our marketing strategy, if you want to talk to me about the wider sort of delivery strategy as well, we're always happy to talk, always happy to share. So please do get in touch. Our details are in the FDN group, but also please feel free to email if you want to. Thank you for listening. Hopefully it was of some use. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your conference, and hopefully we'll catch up in person soon. We were supposed to be doing this one in Breda, whenever that was, March, but obviously that got cancelled for very good reasons. Let's hope that by the time that March 2021 comes around, that this vaccine will have kicked in and we're all safe and well, and that hope we'll all see each other in person soon when we can just have a chat over coffee as well. So cool, thank you to everyone, and yeah, we'll leave you to it, I think.